After my son's funeral, his professor called me with a trembling voice. Come to my office immediately. Don't tell anyone. I have something to show you. When I arrived at her office door, I heard threatening voices inside. Through the crack, I saw someone I never expected. My heart stopped. Thank you for being here as I share the darkest moment of my life. Drop a comment telling me your location and the time right now. I want to know who's walking through this story with me. 2 hours after burying my youngest son, my phone rang with a call that shattered everything I thought I knew. I sat alone in the study of our Coral Gables home, still wearing the black suit from the funeral. Through the window, the late afternoon sun cast shadows across the mahogany desk where Evan and I used to sketch building designs together. He'd been 23, brilliant, full of a future that would never come. The doctors called it sudden organ failure, rare, unexplainable. A healthy young man gone in less than a week. My wife Susan had been gone for 3 years. Now Evan. The house felt like a mausoleum filled with ghosts. Dad? Bradley's voice drifted from the living room. My eldest son had stayed close since Evan's death. You need anything? I didn't answer. The mourners had left an hour ago, their hollow condolences still echoing. He's in a better place now. Time heals all wounds. Empty words. That's when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made me sit up. Professor Catherine Ross. Evan's architecture professor at the University of Miami. She'd been at the funeral that morning, unable to speak, as she placed a white rose on the casket. I answered, Professor Ross. Mr. Donovan? Her voice trembled. I found something. In Evan's belongings. You need to see this. My chest tightened. What kind of something? I can't explain over the phone. Her breathing was ragged. Please, come to my office at the university, right now. The architecture building, 3rd floor. I glanced toward the living room where Bradley was tidying up. Can't this wait until... No. The word came out sharp, desperate. Mr. Donovan, please, don't tell anyone you're coming. Not even... She paused. Not even your other son. This is dangerous. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. Dangerous. What could possibly be dangerous about Evan's belongings? But something in Professor Ross's voice made my instincts scream that this wasn't nothing. Bradley appeared in the doorway. Going somewhere, Dad? I forced a tired smile. Just need to drive. Clear my head. Want company? No, I need some time alone. Won't be long. He pulled me into a brief hug. Take your time. I'll be here. 20 minutes later, I was pulling into the visitor parking at the University of Miami. The campus was nearly deserted on a Saturday evening, palm trees, casting shadows across the walkways. The architecture building loomed ahead, its glass facade reflecting the orange-pink sky. I took the stairs to the 3rd floor. Professor Ross's office was at the end of the hall. I'd been here 2 years ago, when Evan declared architecture as his major. Now, as I approached, the door stood slightly ajar. Light spilled into the darkened hallway. And I heard voices. Told you to stay out of this. A male voice, low and threatening. Give it to me, now. Please, this isn't... Professor Ross's voice frightened. I said, give it to me. I moved closer, pulse hammering. Through the gap in the door, I caught a glimpse of Professor Ross, backed against her filing cabinet, hands raised. Her face was white eyes wide with terror. And standing before her, gripping what looked like a worn leather journal, was Bradley, my eldest son, the man who was supposed to be home grieving with me. Instead, he was here threatening the woman who'd called me in desperation. I didn't think. I pushed the door open. The hinges creaked. Bradley spun around. My eldest son turned to face me, his expression shifting from fury to forced surprise in an instant. Dad Bradley's voice was smooth, gentle. What are you doing here? For a moment, I couldn't force words out. My son stood in the doorway, Evan's leather journal in his hand, his face arranged into the perfect mask of concern. Behind him, Professor Ross was pressed against the filing cabinet, her fingers trembling. I could ask you the same thing, I said finally. You told me you'd be home. Bradley glanced at the journal, then at me, softening his expression into something apologetic. I couldn't just sit around Dad. I needed to do something. I came to collect Evan's things before the university clears everything out. I didn't want his work tossed into storage. He gestured to Professor Ross. She's helping me gather his projects. Professor Ross nodded too quickly. Her eyes flickered to mine, frightened, desperate. Every instinct warned me something was wrong, but Bradley's words sounded reasonable, caring. The responsible older brother handling the details I supposedly couldn't bear. That's thoughtful, I said. Bradley stepped toward me, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. Let's go home, Dad. You shouldn't be driving all over tonight. I'll follow you back. He turned to the professor with a warm smile. Thank you. I'll return Monday for the rest. She nodded again, her face pale. As Bradley guided me toward the door, her arm moved in a quick, precise motion. Something small and white slipped into my coat pocket. When I turned, our eyes met one last time. Her lips shaped a single word. Run. Outside, Bradley walked me to my car. His sleek black sedan sat 3 spaces away. See you at home, he said, pulling me into a hug. Drive safe. He drove off first. Only when his taillights vanished did I reach into my pocket. A torn notepad scrapped the handwriting shaky. Journal, his room, under mattress, run. My fingers trembled as I got into my car. The drive back to Coral Gables felt endless. My thoughts spiraled, colliding with the image of Professor Ross's terrified eyes. Why would she fear Bradley? What was in that journal he'd been holding so tightly? I turned onto Anastasia Avenue. Bradley's car was already parked in its usual place. Through the front window, I saw him moving around the living room. I waited in the driveway for 5 long minutes. Finally, he disappeared down the hallway into his bedroom. I slipped inside the house as quietly as I could. Evan's room looked untouched, frozen in time. His unmade bed, architecture textbooks piled on the desk, the half-finished scale model he'd been perfecting for his senior project. The faint trace of his cologne clung to the air, tightening my chest, but I pushed the grief aside. I had a task. I lifted the mattress. There, pressed against the box, spring lay Evan's worn leather journal, his constant companion. I opened to the first entry. Week 1. Bradley gave me premium vitamins. Said they'd help with stress during finals. He's been so supportive lately. It feels good. I turned the page. Week 3, feeling nauseous. Tired all the time. Maybe I'm overworking. Bradley says the vitamins help, so I keep taking them. A cold heaviness crept into my stomach. Week 5. Something's wrong. I checked my symptoms, nothing fits. But every time I take those vitamins, I feel worse. Maybe I'm imagining things. Week 7. Found the bottle when Bradley wasn't home. No brand, no label, just chemical codes on the plastic. I took a photo. Why would he give me something like this? A photograph was taped to the page, a small amber bottle, blank, except for stamped codes. I turned to the final entry dated 3 days before Evan died. I'm scared. Really scared. If I tell Dad, it'll destroy our family. Maybe there's an explanation. Bradley's my brother. Could he? The sentence ended abruptly. I sat on Evan's bed, the journal heavy in my hands, and the truth struck with devastating clarity. Bradley had poisoned his younger brother, slowly, quietly, while I praised their closeness. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Dad, Bradley called. His voice was getting closer. He was coming toward Evan's room. I slipped the journal inside my jacket and moved toward the balcony. Evan's room had a small balcony overlooking the backyard, and beside it, the fire escape metal stairs zigzagging down the side of the house. I'd yelled at Evan more than once for using it as a shortcut when he was late for dinner. Now it might save my life. I unlocked the balcony door as quietly as possible. The hinges creaked. The night air was cool and damp from earlier rain. I swung my leg over the railing just as the bedroom door slammed open behind me. Dad. I didn't look back. My hands gripped the wet railing, my shoes slipping slightly on the metal. One foot found the first step, then another. My heart hammered as I descended the journal, pressing hard against my ribs, solid, incriminating. Above me, Bradley moved through the room. Dad, are you in here? I climbed down as fast as I dared. 20 feet. 15? 10? When my shoes hit the grass, I ran. The side gate was unlocked. I pushed through it and emerged onto Anastasia Avenue. My car sat in the driveway, but I couldn't risk going back. Bradley would spot me. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd called thousands of times. Leonard Pierce, my executive assistant, my right hand for 15 years. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Donovan, is everything? Leonard, I rasped. I need help. I'm near the house corner of Anastasia and Granada. Can you pick me up? Leonard didn't ask questions. I'm 20 minutes away. Stay put. I hid deeper in a neighbor's hedge and watched my house. Lights flicked on in Evan's room, then the hallway. Bradley was searching. Finally, headlights approached. Leonard's silver Honda pulled over and I ran to it. Drive, I said. Leonard pulled away smoothly, his calm presence steadying me. At 50, he'd guided me through countless business crises. But this was worse than anything we'd faced. Where are we going? He asked. Anywhere but here. I pressed my hand against my jacket, feeling the journal beneath it. I'll explain later. He nodded and drove toward downtown Miami. 10 minutes later, we parked inside the loft, downtown too. Leonard led me to his small studio unit, 1204, where he stayed during late nights at the office. Sid, he said softly, "Tell me." So I did. Everything. Professor Ross's call, finding Bradley in her office, her warning, the journal, the entries, the photo of the unlabeled bottle. When I handed him the journal, Leonard's hands shook as he read. His face went pale, then flushed, then pale again. My God. Bradley did this. He killed Evan. I think so. I know how it sounds, but it doesn't sound insane. He closed the journal carefully. I believe you. What now? Before I could answer, the TV on the wall flickered to life the evening news. Breaking news from the University of Miami, the anchor said. Professor Catherine Ross was found dead this evening, apparently from a fall from the 5th floor of the architecture building. Preliminary reports suggest a possible suicide. The screen showed police tape flashing lights. The journal slipped from my hands. No. Mr. Donovan, they killed her. My voice cracked. She called me. She tried to help, and they killed her. Leonard rose, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. This wasn't your fault. She died because you found that journal. She died, he said steadily, because she did the right thing, and we won't let it be for nothing. I lifted the journal, my grief hardening into something cold. We can't go to the police. Not yet. They'll say Evan was paranoid, that I'm imagining things. Then what do? Leonard asked. We get more evidence, I said, and we make sure everyone knows what my son did. They killed her, and they will not get away with it. 2 days later, Leonard laid out a plan. We sat in his apartment. The loft unit 1204 blinds, drawn coffee cold on the table between us. My eyes were dry but heavy. I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time since I'd read Evan's journal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his handwriting, the vitamins Bradley gave me. Leonard tapped a legal pad covered in his neat block letters. You're the CEO? You have access to every office in that building, including Bradley's. I looked at him. He'll know I was there? Not if we're smart about it. Leonard turned his laptop toward me. On the screen was a blueprint of One Brickell Plaza, floor 28 highlighted. Security cameras cover the hallways, but I bought a device online, a signal jammer. It'll loop the feed for 3 minutes. Just enough time. 3 minutes, I repeated. You go in. I stay in the car, monitor the system. You find what we need and get out. I stared at the blueprint. Bradley's office. Suite 2800. The same office where I'd taught him how to read a contract. What if his computer's locked? I asked. Leonard pulled a small app up on his phone. TeamViewer. If you can get the computer on, I can access it remotely and bypass most security folders. I nodded slowly. It was a risk. But we had no choice. The journal alone wasn't enough, not without corroboration. We needed something concrete. Something that tied Bradley to Gordon Mitchell, our CFO. Something that proved intent. Tonight, Leonard said. 2 a.m., minimal security. No one on the executive floor. The drive to Brickell was silent. Leonard parked 2 blocks away, engine idling. I wore gloves, a dark jacket. My hands shook as I pulled the building key from my wallet. 3 minutes, Leonard reminded me, eyes on his tablet. Starting now. I walked through the side entrance, took the service elevator to 28. The hallway was empty, sterile, under fluorescent lights. I moved quickly to suite 2800, slid my master key into the lock, and stepped inside. Bradley's office smelled like leather and cologne. I sat at his desk, powered on his computer. The screen blinked to life, prompting a password. My chest tightened. I tried the obvious ones, his birthday, his mother's name. Nothing. Then, almost on instinct, I typed EO3 Memphis 2, Evan's birthday, March 15th, 2002. The screen unlocked. A bitter, sick irony. I whispered into the phone. Good. Look for a folder labeled private or something similar. I scanned the desktop. There it was, private. Locked with another layer of security. Found it. It's encrypted. Give me 10 seconds. I held the phone up to the monitor. Leonard's app flashed on his end. The folder blinked, then opened. Inside were emails. Dozens of them. I clicked the most recent thread. My blood went cold. From Bradley Donovan to Gordon Mitchell. Subject, no subject. The problem needs to be handled, quickly. From Gordon Mitchell to Bradley Donovan. I can source it, untraceable, slow acting, 15,000. From Bradley Donovan. Do it. Once he's gone, the company's mine. We split the 2.3 offshore like we agreed. From Gordon Mitchell. Your gambling debts get cleared. I retire comfortably. Done. I couldn't breathe. I took photos of every email with my phone hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped it. Philip! Leonard's voice cracked through the line. 1 minute. I closed the folder, shut down the computer, wiped the keyboard with my sleeve. I walked out, locked the door behind me, and took the stairs down, heart hammering in my chest. Leonard was waiting in the car engine, still running. I climbed in and he pulled away slowly, headlights off until we reached the main road. I showed him the photos. He read them in silence, jaw tight. We have proof, I said, voice hoarse, but we need more. We need his voice. Leonard looked at me, eyes hard with understanding. Then we go back. The next afternoon I returned to the office, this time openly. I took an Uber from Leonard's apartment. My car was still parked outside my house on Anastasia Avenue, untouched since the day I'd left it there in a panic. I couldn't go back, not yet. Not while Bradley still lived under that roof. I walked into One Brickell Plaza like I had 1,000 times before. Nodded at the security guard, took the executive elevator to 28. A few employees greeted me in the hallway, sympathetic smiles, quiet condolences. I returned them with a tight nod. Thank you, I said. I'm just catching up on a few things. No one questioned it. I was Philip Donovan, founder and CEO. This was my building. Bradley's office was empty. His assistant told me he was in a client meeting across town, wouldn't be back until evening. Perfect. I stepped inside, closed the door softly behind me. From my jacket pocket, I pulled the tiny microphone Leonard had ordered online. Wireless. Voice activated. Range of 50 feet. I crouched beneath Bradley's desk and pressed it into the shadowed corner where the wood met the metal frame. Invisible unless you were looking for it. Then I stood, smoothed my jacket, and walked out. By 5:30 that evening, I was back at Leonard's apartment. He handed me his phone, the listening app already open. It's live, he said quietly. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, and waited. At 5:32, Bradley's voice crackled through the speaker. Gordon, it's me. I froze. What's wrong? Gordon Mitchell's voice, clipped, cautious. The old man's starting to ask questions. He went to the university the other day. So stay calm. The professor's suicide closed that door. There's no evidence. We need to move the offshore funds faster. 2 weeks, Gordon said. You'll be announced as president at the gala. After that, we liquidate and disappear. There was a pause. Then Bradley's voice again, lower, bitter. I should have done this years ago. He was always Dad's favorite. Evan this, Evan that. Well, not anymore. I stopped breathing. Leonard reached over and paused the recording. Philip. Play it again, I said. He did. He was always Dad's favorite. Well, not anymore. I heard it in his voice. Not regret, not guilt, satisfaction. Leonard turned off the app. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. We have enough, Leonard said quietly. The journal, the emails, this recording. We can go to the police now. I looked at him. My hands were steady now, my voice too. No, Philip, I want the world to see it, I said. I want him to fall in front of everyone, not in some interrogation room, not in some plea deal behind closed doors. I stood. I want him destroyed, publicly. Leonard studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. The company gala, he said. Next Friday, Four Seasons, Miami. 500 guests. Investors, board members, press. Exactly. I paced the small living room. We'll prepare a presentation, video, audio, evidence. I'll contact our AV team, tell them I'm giving a tribute to Evan. They won't question it. And Detective Rivera, Leonard asked. You reach out. Quietly. Tell him to be there. Tell him we have something he needs to see. Leonard picked up his phone, already typing. 7 days to prepare. 7 days, I repeated. I walked to the window, looked out over the Miami skyline. Somewhere out there, Bradley was sitting in his office, confident, untouchable, planning his ascension. He had no idea. In 7 days, he'd stand on that stage to accept his new role, and I'd make sure the whole world saw exactly who my son really was. Not the victim, the killer. The ballroom at the Four Seasons Miami glittered with Miami's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast shifting shadows across marble floors as 400 guests mingled beneath soaring ceilings. The air hummed with perfumed champagne and the low murmur of powerful people making deals. This was the Donovan Development Annual Gala at Ballroom Level 7, 1435 Brickell Avenue, an event where Miami's wealthiest gathered to celebrate ambition. Tonight's purpose was monumental, the official announcement of Bradley Donovan as the new president and COO of Donovan Development, one of South Florida's premier real estate empires. Backstage, Bradley adjusted his midnight blue Tom Ford suit. The mirror reflected a man at the pinnacle of achievement, polished, confident, ready to inherit his father's legacy. When the MC called his name, he stepped onto the stage, greeted by polite applause. "Good evening," Bradley began, gripping the podium, his smile perfectly measured. "To continue my father's extraordinary legacy is a professional honor and a sacred family duty." He paused, letting the room absorb the sentiment. "My late brother Evan would have been proud. He believed architecture could transform lives." His voice cracked just enough. "This company is built on family values, integrity, and the dreams we pass down." Applause swelled. Cameras flashed. Bradley basked in the admiration. Then the stage lights shut off. 3 seconds of total darkness, a ripple of confusion. When the lights returned, a figure stood beside Bradley. Philip Donovan. Gasps swept the ballroom. Philip wore a simple black suit, his face gaunt, but resolute eyes blazing with grief and fury. He looked like a man risen from mourning. "Mr. Donovan, a guest called. We didn't expect—" "You're supposed to be in mourning," someone whispered. Bradley's face turned white. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Philip approached the microphone, his voice slicing through the murmur. "I'm here to tell the truth about my son's death." Silence slammed over the room. From the control booth, Leonard pressed a button. The massive rear screen flickered on. Pages from a leather journal appeared, Evan's handwriting growing increasingly frantic. Entries described fear, confusion, and the mysterious vitamins. Photos of unmarked pill bottles with chemical codes filled the screen. Then came the email's white text on black background. "Get the substance. Untraceable. $15,000. Once he's gone, company is mine. Split offshore, $2.3 million. Shocked whispers erupted. Phones rose to record. Then the audio played. The ballroom exploded into chaos. Reporters surged forward. Investors stood in disbelief. Board members stared at Bradley with horror. Bradley spun toward Gordon Mitchell, seated in the third row. "You told me this was foolproof." Gordon stood abruptly. "Don't you pin this on me? You poisoned your own brother. You provided the substance. You wanted the money." "I wanted," Gordon thundered. "You had $850,000 in gambling debt. I only helped for a cut." The two men, dressed in immaculate suits, hurled accusations while cameras flashed like fireworks. Philip stood still at the microphone, watching the unraveling. When he finally spoke, his quiet voice carried everywhere. "Both of you killed my son, for money, for greed." Bradley turned toward him, panicked. "Dad, I can explain, please. This isn't what you think." "Explain to the police." As if on cue, the ballroom doors opened. Detective Samuel Rivera entered with 6 uniformed officers. They had been waiting, listening. Bradley's eyes darted wildly. He bolted toward the back, but the crowd closed in hundreds of witnesses, blocking every escape phones, raised like a wall of truth. Camera flashes blinded him. He stumbled, covering his face, but there was nowhere left to hide. Under Miami's brightest lights, everything he'd done was revealed. 400 people had seen it all. Bradley tried to run, but there was no escaping now. They didn't arrest Bradley or Gordon that night. The evidence could be challenged in court. We needed a direct confession. The gala had ended in chaos, but both men slipped away before Detective Rivera could detain them. Within hours, footage from the event went viral. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Headlines exploded. Miami developer's son accused of fratricide gala. Confession shocks city. Donovan dynasty scandal. But viral outrage wasn't enough. The next morning, I sat in Leonard's apartment when my attorney, Thomas Caldwell, called. "Philip," he said carefully, "a defense lawyer could argue the journal was obtained improperly. The email's legally murky. We need something irrefutable. A direct confession to law enforcement." I hung up, feeling the weight of failure. Leonard watched me quietly, then said, "Then we make them confess." "How?" "We turn them against each other." His voice sharpened. "They're panicking, hiding somewhere, blaming each other already. Put them in the same room and paranoia will take care of the rest." It was risky, manipulative, necessary. Using a burner phone bought with cash, Leonard sent 2 texts. To Bradley, "It's Gordon. Need to meet. Split the money and disappear before cops find the accounts." 2 a.m. Port of Miami Warehouse, 7D. "Bring offshore docks. Come alone." To Gordon, "It's Bradley. We need to meet. Plan our escape." 2 a.m. Warehouse, 7D. "Come alone or we're both finished." Leonard informed Detective Rivera. Rivera hesitated, but agreed. "Units will wait outside. But if this blows up, it's on you." That night, Leonard and I drove to the Port of Miami in silence. The warehouse district loomed dark metal structures, stacked containers, distant ship horns. Warehouse 7D sat at the end of a deserted access road, abandoned and peeling. Inside, rusted equipment littered the vast open space. A metal loft overlooked the floor. We climbed up and hid behind a stack of pallets. Leonard set a recording device between us, its red light blinking. Then we waited. At 1:58 a.m., headlights swept across the walls. Gordon Mitchell entered, wrapped in an expensive coat, eyes darting. At 2:03 a.m., another car arrived. Bradley walked in tense and agitated. They froze when they saw each other. "Why did you text me?" Bradley demanded. "You texted me," Gordon snapped. Realization hit them both. Bradley ran to the door. Locked. Leonard had secured it with a chain. "What the hell is this?" Bradley shouted. "You idiot," Gordon roared. "You led them right to us." "Me. You're the one who said everything was untraceable." Their unraveling began loud, frantic damning. "This is your fault." Gordon jabbed a shaking finger. "I told you the dose was too high. Spread it out over 6 months, not 3. You're the one who bought poison from some black market chemist in Hialeah." Bradley fired back. "What did you expect?" "I expected you not to be reckless. You had $850,000 in gambling debt. And you stole $2.3 million from the company," Bradley screamed. "Fake invoices, shell accounts, don't pretend you're innocent." Then Gordon asked, trembling, "How did you get him to take it every day?" Bradley laughed hollowly. "Easy. I told little brother they were vitamins for stress. He trusted me. Wrote it in that stupid journal, but never told Dad. Too loyal to accuse me." Above them, I shook with rage so fierce my vision blurred. Leonard gripped my arm, grounding me. Suddenly, the warehouse flooded with light. "This is Miami PD. Do not move." Bradley and Gordon shielded their eyes as officers surrounded the building. Bradley glanced up and saw us. His face twisted. "You set this up." Police burst in from all sides. Gordon raised his hands instantly. "I surrender. I'll talk." Bradley ran. He sprinted toward the exit, but I was already descending the stairs. He pivoted and charged at me. "You ruined everything," he shrieked. "He was nothing, just in the way." I stepped back. "He was your brother?" "He threatened my inheritance." Bradley lunged, grabbing my jacket. I stared into eyes that no longer looked like my son's. "Your brother loved you. Your mother loved you. And you threw it all away." "Don't talk about Mom," he whispered, breaking. Then he lunged again. Leonard stepped between us, shoving him backward. Bradley stumbled and fell hard onto the concrete. Officers swarmed him, cuffing his wrists. Gordon was cuffed moments later. As they lifted Bradley to his feet, he looked at me, eyes wet. "Dad." I turned away. Detective Rivera met me at the exit. "We got everything, Mr. Donovan. Full confession. They're done." I nodded. "One son dead, one in handcuffs." And I walked out into the night alone. 6 weeks later, I sat in courtroom 601 of the Richard E. Gerstein Justice Building. The room smelled of old wood and tension. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. The gallery overflowed with reporters, former employees, curious onlookers, and a few of Evan's friends who wanted to see justice done. This concrete fortress at 1351 NW 12th Street had judged Miami's darkest cases. Today it would judge my eldest son. Judge Howard Stevens presided, steel gray hair, sharp eyes, a man known for fairness without softness. Even he seemed affected by the gravity of what Bradley and Gordon had done. Both defendants sat at the defense table, separated by their attorneys. Gaunt pale, their once expensive suits hung loosely on them. Bradley stared forward, jaw locked. Gordon stared at his hands, hollow and defeated. Prosecutor Monica Price rose. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. The victim's journal documents his symptoms and suspicions. Emails show payment discussions for acquiring poison and splitting embezzled funds. Recorded calls reveal their conspiracy. And most damning, we have full confessions from the Port of Miami warehouse, witnessed by Detective Rivera and multiple officers." Defense attorney Jeffrey Graham argued entrapment, that grief had driven me to manufacture evidence that doubt remained. Judge Stevens responded crisply, "The confession was voluntarily obtained with police present. The evidence stands." Witnesses followed. Kyle Henderson, Evan's roommate, testified with a trembling voice. "Evan told me Bradley was being unusually nice, bringing him vitamins, checking on him. He felt something was off. He never imagined—" Kyle wiped his eyes. Then Patricia Reeves from Donovan Development testified. "I saw Mr. Mitchell meeting privately with Bradley twice a week. It was odd Gordon didn't report to Bradley. When I asked, he became defensive. Piece by piece, the case built an unbreakable wall. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the forewoman announced, on all charges of first-degree murder conspiracy to commit murder and fraud, we find the defendants guilty. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scribbled. Someone behind me cried, perhaps a professor of Evans. Judge Stevens addressed the defendants. The callousness with which you ended a young life is beyond comprehension. You poisoned a trusting young man, slowly, methodically pretending concern, while watching him die. This was not survival or passion, but greed. He pronounced sentence. Bradley Donovan, life imprisonment without parole. Bradley didn't move, but his hands shook. Gordon Mitchell, life imprisonment without parole. Gordon collapsed into a quiet sob. Bradley looked at me across the courtroom. Regret, sorrow, or desperate hope flickered in his eyes, none of which I could return. I looked away. Officers cuffed both men and led them through the side door, their footsteps echoing. Outside, reporters crowded around me. Cameras flashed. I raised a hand. Justice has been served. But it doesn't bring my son back. I walked away before they could ask more. 6 months later, I stood at 299 Coral Way Suite 205. A new sign read, the Evan Donovan Memorial Scholarship Fund. Through the window hung a photo of Evan smiling beside one of his architectural models full of promise. Leonard stood beside me holding a folder. First recipient interview today. We created the fund using a large part of my personal wealth, full scholarships, for talented architecture students with financial need. Evan would have loved that. A young woman, Megan Taylor, entered nervous, determined, clutching her portfolio. She worked 2 jobs, studied at Miami-Dade College, and had designs that moved me deeply. Thank you for this opportunity, she whispered. I won't waste it. I smiled genuinely for the first time in months. Make Evan proud. Later that day, I drove to Woodlawn Park Cemetery. 2 graves rested beneath an old oak tree, Susan's and Evan's. I placed white roses for Susan, sunflowers for Evan. Kneeling, I whispered, he's helping others now. I couldn't save him, but I can save his dream. A breeze rustled the leaves overhead. For the first time, I felt the beginning of peace. Not happiness, but meaning. I had lost 2 sons, one to death, one to greed. But through Evan's legacy, others would rise. Justice was served. Something good was growing from the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Looking back at my story, I see a father who was too blind to see the poison growing in his own home. I was so focused on building an empire that I failed to see my eldest son drowning in debt and desperation. My advice to you, especially those reading Grandpa stories like mine to learn from past mistakes, is this: wealth means nothing if it corrupts the souls of those you love. Success is hollow when it breeds envy between brothers. If this true story teaches anything, it's that we must know our children's hearts, not just their accomplishments. Talk to them. Really listen. Don't let money become the measure of their worth or yours. Because I learned too late that the greatest inheritance I could have given wasn't property or position. It was integrity, compassion, and the knowledge that they were loved equally. In my darkest hours, I turned to God, asking why He allowed such evil to flourish in my family. I realized He was asking me the same question. Why did I allow ambition to replace attention? Wealth to replace wisdom? These grandpa stories aren't just cautionary tales. They're mirrors reflecting what happens when we lose sight of what truly matters. This is my true story, raw and unfiltered. I share it so others might avoid the mistakes I made. Among all the grandpa stories you might hear, I hope mine reminds you that family is fragile, and greed can destroy even the strongest bonds. If this resonated with you, please leave a comment telling me where you're from and what lessons you took away. Share this true story with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to the channel for more powerful real-life stories that teach us how to live better. Thank you.